chunk of money. And I was angry at myself, angry that I'd placed trust in someone else who had effectively let me down. And I thought, well, how can I continue when I can't even trust the people around me? And so that was really a big learning experience. And what I learned from that was that sometimes you will be let down by people around you and by customers and suppliers. And one should look at these kind of experiences as just learning experiences. As I've got another little saying that the stronger the wind, the stronger the trees. And that experience certainly made me a lot stronger in being able to deal with setbacks like that. Another experience I had in Hong Kong, and I was taking the ferry across from Hong Kong Island across to the mainland, and there was this kind of I can't remember what it was called, like a little dispenser of like a fortune cookie dispenser, but it wasn't exactly a fortune cookie. And I opened up this little fortune cookie, and it said a jack of all trades and a master of none. And I actually, that instant moment, I actually took that, quite offensively. I took it as a negative statement or a negative comment. And it was only a number of years later that I actually realised that that statement actually holds quite true. That, one of the questions was, what are my skills? Well, I am not an expert in finance or IT or marketing or sales or acquisitions, but a generalist across a range of different subjects. But what I'm able to do is to bring in the experts in finance, the best salespeople I can, the best IT people, the best merchant bankers, to actually help us grow the business. And I believe one of my skills is being able to bring together a diverse set of resources in the best fashion in order to basically make things happen. And so I think, thinking back to that little fortune cookie, that's exactly what I focused on, is very much being a generalist across a range of different areas and being able to bring the best people on board in order to make things happen. And as the late Packer used to say, always hire people that are better than you in their respective areas. And that's very much a mantra that I hold true today.
Domenic, have you ever felt out of your depth?
I on numerous occasions, I feel like I've jumped in too deep. But my view is that the only way to expand one's comfort zones is to actually stretch those comfort zones. When we went public in May 2000, I had never been or operated a public company before, and now it's been 7 years in and I love it. I couldn't think of anything better to do, and so I've very much I've learned from that experience. Only now we've made a number of acquisitions at Destra over the last 7 years, and only now we're actually undertaking our first public company acquisition, effectively our public company buying another public company. It's a different process, definitely outside my comfort zones. We've brought on the experts at Gresham to help us with that transaction. So from my perspective, feeling like I've jumped in too deeply or expanding my comfort zones, is just part of the process. That's how you grow and learn and are able to become a better person.
What's been the lowest point of your career so far?
Okay, that's a good question. Destra listed in May 2000, really, I would say just after the height of the dot-com boom. Back in May and June and July, people still thought that the dot-com bust was a small blip and that it will all come back. And also part of Destra's business model revolved around digital music, and the record companies unfortunately back then weren't providing out their content in digital format. They were too busy suing the likes of Napster. Part of our model also relied around online advertising and that market, because it was all the dot-com spending money and they're all going broke, so it went from being worth around $70 million to half that virtually overnight.
How did you cope with it personally?
We had started hiring all these people, building our websites like mp3.com.au and our other online properties, and at the height we had about 60 people. But there was a lot of red ink We just weren't getting traction from a revenue perspective. Deployments were taking longer than expected, and we just weren't meeting our expectations from a profit perspective. And in January 2001, I call it Black Monday, one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make, where we retrenched almost half of the team. And it was very difficult because I had brought on a bunch of really good, smart people with the expectation that we were going to build the business. And I had to basically sit down one by one and tell them that they no longer had a job with the company. And that was a very hard decision to make and a very hard decision to execute. And I know I was depressed for a couple of weeks after that point. But I knew that by making that really tough decision that I had in fact saved the organisation. And it's now allowed us to now be in a position where we've grown significantly from that point, employing over 300 people and have been profitable for quite a number of years in a row. And I remember when I made that decision, there was an internal paradox. On one hand, I was feeling quite sad and depressed. On the other hand, I was actually feeling joyous, excited and happy, knowing that I'd just saved the company. So there was a real mixture of emotions. And I look back to that experience, and if I ever had to make that decision again, undoubtedly I would do what is in the best interest of the company and in the best interest of the majority of the people.
What's the wildest thing you've ever done, Domenic?
Sorry, what's the
wildest thing you've ever done?
Wildest things. In terms of the wildest things I've ever done, I'll have to come back to that question. Launching, to me, people say, what do you do in your personal life? And it's sometimes hard to explain to a lot of people, but business is personal to me. It's a lifestyle. I don't go home at 5 o'clock or 5:30 or switch on the TV or go to nightclubs and that kind of stuff anymore, or actually ever. To me, running a business and building Destra is, I still feel like I'm 5 years old and I'm playing in the sandpit for the very first time. And to me, that I love what I do. And so I would not want to change it for the world. And in terms of, what's the wildest things, basically going public from, when we were operating from our bedroom, launching a takeover bid for a public company that's almost as equal value as ours. They're, to me, other people may not see it this way, but they're, to me, things that are, they're wild. We're doing things that are, what some people could argue as being crazy, but I look at it as just having big, fat, hairy, audacious goals.
I love that term. How would people describe you, do you think?
I'm not a very good person for describing myself, and what I usually tell people is ask people that know me in terms of describing me. And if you press me a little bit harder, I'd say definitely passionate, because I love what I do. Direct in terms of my communication. I think also holding a high level of integrity. I think that's just imperative. I've got another little saying that it takes years to build a reputation, only minutes to lose it. So that's something that is extremely important for me, particularly in the public environment. One of the sayings I have in the business is hire slow, fire fast. And a number of times I'm sure we've had this experience in all of our teams, where we're managing a team and we know someone just isn't cutting it, and we give them one chance and another chance and then a third chance, and then finally we need to let them go. But deep down in our hearts, we already knew that this person wasn't going to make it.
What's been the happiest moment of your life?
From a happiness perspective, I mean, there's been many happy occasions, and I could argue that one of the happiest occasions was when my sister was born, but I was only 2 years old. So I'll say in retrospect, or in hindsight, that was certainly one of the happiest moments. But if I look at it from a business perspective, because my life does revolve around business, was actually going